Afternoon, everyone. It's afternoon here, so that's what I'm going to stick with. I'm going to stick with afternoon, and it's going to work. This is all going to work. I'm almost certain it's going to work. Miles here. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. Like I said, I'm trying to do videos more frequently, so hopefully I can start a trend here. We're getting some stuff out on a more regular basis. Today I want to do something a little bit different than what we normally do on this channel. We usually talk about stuff having to do with music theory and the actual mechanics of playing stuff on the guitar. But I want to talk about some gear today. So we're going to do that. We're going to talk about some pedals, one in particular, and hopefully you guys like it. And the pedal that we're going to be talking about today is the Malekko Ekko 616 analog delay. This analog delay is a pedal that I've had for a long time now, and I've found a lot of great uses for it. I ordered it online, but once I got it in the mail and it came here and I took it out of the box and I plugged it in, I immediately fell in love with all of the things that it's capable of doing, because it has some capabilities that you wouldn't necessarily find in an ordinary delay pedal, or even a digital delay for that matter. And we'll discuss the difference between analog and digital in a little bit. But before we do all that, let's just get right into how this thing sounds. All right, here we go. So when you think of a delay pedal, probably the first thing that pops into your head is the idea of an echo. An echo being the sound of a sound bouncing off an object that's far away and coming back to where it came from, being heard at a later time. That seems like a simple definition, right? Good enough? Good enough. Okay. So basically what a delay pedal is doing, it's recreating that same sound and that same concept of an echo, but in a much more contained box. Now, you might not be sure what the difference is between an analog and a digital delay is, but it's actually pretty simple. I'll break it down in a way that's a little bit easier to see. So, to try to give you a visual explanation as the difference between analog and digital delay, I need you to picture a picture of yourself. Now, I'm going to keep saying picture. Picture a picture of yourself being reproduced over and over again, and each picture is being stacked one after another a distance away. So as the picture is farther and farther away, it becomes harder to see details of that picture, and it becomes smaller. This is essentially what an echo is in regards to a delay pedal for a guitar or bass, where it's taking the same phrase that goes into the pedal itself, and it's taking it and it's repeating it over and over again, but the volume of it is getting lower as the trails of that echo trail off. Now, the difference between digital and analog is, with a digital delay, you have a stack of pictures going farther and farther away, and it's the same picture, just going farther away and getting quieter. When it comes to an analog delay, you have all the same picture, but as they get farther away, the picture itself becomes darker. You begin to see less detail of the picture. So that's basically, in a very simplified way, the explanation as to how to differentiate between digital and analog. In terms of their applications, that's really up to you. For me personally, I like to use a digital delay for lead tones on guitar in order to maintain that same clarity of the notes that I had played previously before the echoes started to be heard. And I like to use an analog delay for when I'm making sort of like a wall of sound, texture, if you will, where all the details of the original signal start to get lost after a while, but in a really nice complementary way. Now, with the Malekko 616, what you have here is a Bucket Brigade style analog delay. And you're probably asking yourself, what's a Bucket Brigade style analog delay? You're just throwing all these terms at us. And I know, I'm sorry, I promise, I'm going to explain everything. Bear with me. So when you're dealing with a Bucket Brigade style analog delay, what you're dealing with is a Bucket Brigade style chip. And what that does, it sends your analog signal through a series of capacitors built into the pedal. And as it goes through each of these capacitors, the characteristics of your original sound begin to change. In most cases with a delay pedal, you can set it in its traditional way, where as your signal trails off, it's literally getting smaller and smaller as it goes. So the volume gets lower, and you begin to hear less detail of the original sound. Now, what makes this pedal cool is that while it's a Bucket Brigade style pedal, it doesn't necessarily share the same characteristics of a traditional Bucket Brigade style pedal. Traditionally, to have that circuit in a delay pedal, you would have to just accept that you would have these very short delay times, because the idea of having an elongated delay time with this style of chip inside a pedal meant that you would have a lot of degradation to your sound, and it wouldn't be very complementary. You wouldn't be able to have a long delay and then have it have any sort of clarity to it. It would dissipate very quickly. But Malekko has found a way to give you up to 650 milliseconds of delay in this Bucket Brigade style. But that's not all. In addition to this massive amount of delay time that you have available to you, you also have a modulation section built in on this pedal. I don't know if you can see it on there, but that's what those top knobs are. So what that means is that you can add essentially what would be a vibrato chorus effect to your delay trails. But wait, there's more. In addition to that, you also have a buffer. Now, if you're running a long signal chain, if you have a whole bunch of pedals, a buffer is going to be a good friend to you. You don't want to have too many buffers. We'll get into that in another video. But too many buffers, you're going to have a bad time. So, when it comes to the traditional controls on a delay, what you'll typically see is a control for time, one for the mix, as in how much delay do you hear compared to your dry signal, and then a regeneration. And that regeneration knob is in control of how many repeats you get from your signal. Now, the time function controls how quickly you hear that delay in response to your dry signal going into the pedal. If you set it real short, you have a very short delay, like a slapback delay. If you set it real long, you got a really long delay. It's pretty simple, right? So now, let's talk about the controls for the modulation section. Now, even these controls are fairly simple. So what you're dealing with here is the modulation button that turns on the modulation for the pedal. And then after that, you have speed and you have depth. Speed obviously controls the speed of the fluctuation of the pitch of your modulation. And it's literally going up and down in pitch. It's going, and your speed is just varying the amount of distance between those waves in fluctuation. And that's pretty much all there is to this pedal. It's very simple. It works very well. I personally love this pedal. I got it a couple years back, and it's one of my favorites. Now, in addition to all of that, one of the other things that is important to note on this thing is that inside the back here, if you look inside here, there's a control pot that you can raise and lower the level of volume of the delay itself overall, which is not the same as the mix control on the front. The mix will determine how much of the delay you hear, but it won't change the volume of it. So just bear that in mind. Now, Malekko makes another version of this pedal called the 616 Dark. And basically what that does, it's taking all the high frequencies of your signal that's going into the pedal and it's rolling them off. Now, what that does is that it allows a little bit more room for your dry signal to come through and still maintain some clarity when you're playing. Obviously, depending on how you set a delay pedal, it can get a little convoluted and overwhelming, depending on how many repeats you have going on, how quickly they're coming through, and it might not be what you're looking for in a delay pedal. So that's what that does. There was a previous version of the 616, but I guess it's discontinued. They don't have it on their website anymore. But the cool thing about this pedal is that you get all the stuff that's built into this thing and the playability of it, and you get it for the incredibly inexpensive price of $150, which is great. If you're like me and you're broke, this is what you want to do. Now, this delay pedal has an analog delay with a large amount of delay time available to it. It's also capable of something called self-oscillation. And you might be asking yourself, well, Miles, what's self-oscillation? And in which case, I thought you'd never ask. So the one thing I didn't like about this pedal that I found out after I bought it, and I kind of found out the hard way, if you're doing anything where you're setting the regeneration all the way up and you're swapping back and forth with the time knob to get some sort of like weird self-oscillation time warp stuff going on, just be sure to turn the regeneration back down after you turn the pedal off. Because if you leave it up, that regeneration is going to keep going. And I found that out the hard way at a show. Scared the crap out of me. And so, something to keep in mind. But other than that, there's really no issues that I've found with this pedal. So if you want to drive your neighbors insane, you want to get kicked out of your own band, well, maybe you don't want to do that. But if you want to do something creative, maybe just have some sort of soundscape between songs as a transitional thing, this is a good way to get started on doing things of that nature. Hopefully you found this video to be informative. I'll be talking about digital delay very soon, and I'm going to be talking about some other stuff along the way as well, some weirder stuff that's out there. But hopefully you found this to be informative. And if you have any other questions about this pedal, either shoot me a message or leave me a comment, or simply go over to Malekko's website and check it out over there. All right? Be well, everyone. Till next time. I'll see you then.